Hey there, and welcome to the Sim Racing channel where we're visiting an old friend. It feels like it's been years since I last featured rFactor 2 on this channel. With tonight's release of their brand new laser-scanned version of Monza, along with BMW's M4 DTM, but not really, race car, it felt like the right occasion to visit again. We're getting straight into it tonight, so here's a drive-through of the new car and track. Monza, at long last, here at home in rFactor 2, meticulously laser scanned, driven in the BMW M4, meant to be DTM but wasn't quite meant to be because last minute regulation changes car. So the car is free. Next time you log into rFactor, you should download it automatically. The track, however, is paid DLC. So let's see how good this thing actually is. It feels surreal to be back in rFactor 2. There were months gone by where it would have been very rare for me not to drive rFactor pretty much several times a week. So after a prolonged absence, here I am, back at home, as it were. It feels good. Feels good. We're going to do a couple of practice laps just very quickly to talk through how the car feels, how the track feels, and then we'll jump into a quick race against the AI, see how well they can race us. Alright, here we go. First thing to note about these cars, DTM of course, unassisted, no TC, no ABS, pure driver skill, it's a thoroughbred race car. Makes the GT3 look like a joke. Lap times around here I think are a good maybe 10 seconds or so quicker than a GT3, which is quite impressive given that the profile of these cars, at least visually, looks pretty much the same. This car of course also packing DRS, borrowing from our open wheeler brethren. As always, rFactor very communicative through those complexes. So one thing I've had to do in order to make this compatible with my wheelbase, I've actually had to turn up the smoothing quite a lot. Smoothing in game is about 5 or 6 at the moment, and smoothing on the base is at about 2. Whoa. There's a lot of granularity and a lot of detail in this, even for rFactor's standards. The force feedback is just a little bit overly riddled with noise for my liking. I've really had to dial it back. Feels very, very granular. Whoa. I might have to move the brake bias forward ever so slightly. Car is a little bit jittery. Of course, using the completely default setup. Haven't had time to really adjust anything. Wanted to get this video out for you guys in time so that you know what's coming when you load into rFactor and you see this new content there. Given the state of the force feedback and how things are, I mean, the track feels very, very, very nuanced, very, very bumpy. There's an insane amount of micro detail, as you would expect from rFactor's track team. Pretty much leading the industry when it comes to detail. Perhaps not so much visual fidelity, but, you know, in terms of the mesh and the feeling. Oh my god, she wants to step out. She definitely wants to step out. She's unfaithful. Here we go. Can I survive with DRS through this zone? I mean, it's practice. I'm allowed to engage it. Why not? Oh, scary. Scary. That's alright. We'll survive. Alright, brake's a bit warmer than the first time we did that complex. You have to be so careful on the throttle. You have to feather the throttle. It's so easy to spin out in this thing, as my man Renee found out in the race last night. It's very much a familiar experience if you've ever driven an rFactor before. It's very much that handoff from brake to throttle, very much driving on the throttle continuously. Maybe not as aggressively as you once could, but certainly the same old things seem to still apply. It's bouncing me around a lot, even with the all the smoothing settings. It's a very, very granular force feedback, so I don't know, I mean, maybe it was intentional, maybe this is the way the DTMs feel and they wanted to convey that, or maybe it might be room for a little post-release update just to dial that back a little bit for us direct drive users who don't really need that much of the minimum forces in there. Alright, what time did we get? What do we get? What do we get? Did it even count that time? I don't even know. Let's do one more. Let's do like a nice pace lap, or at least nice insofar as my meager abilities are concerned. so much understeer until there isn't. Alright, we've got DRS open. I don't know if that's wise going through here, but here we are. I feel like it's more likely to cost me time than gain it for me. Probably getting into bad habits there all the same, because it's not like I'm going to be allowed to use DRS in that zone in the race. So much time you can potentially gain through there if you don't suck as much as I do. And there through. Tons. You can actually see the uneven surface just driving over this track. There's so many bumps everywhere. They're so good at rendering the uneven nature of surfaces. I mean, these guys are absolutely pedantic. I'm gonna guess that's not a DRS zone in the race. So, coming up to Parabolica one more time. Of course, Monza is one of my least driven tracks in all of motorsport. I'm definitely not built for these kind of classic F1 style tracks. Definitely not my kind of thing. So the whole Monza T1 meme really kind of washed over my head. Are we going to set a time? Am I going to get a time? Oh, maybe that counted earlier. Whatever the case, my plebby times are somewhere in the 141s for the time being. I'm sure the car can be adjusted and tuned by the aliens to get a couple of seconds more than that per lap, undoubtedly. So let's move on to the race. And lights out and away they go in DTM. Now, no DRS quite yet, so I have to use my own meager lack of skill to try and keep up with the field. Turns out fast rolling starts aren't supported by this track currently, so I've had to do a couple of formation laps. Trying to get this going. Hopefully the AI don't murder each other on this lap. Good, hey, we survived. Okay, well, apparently they're gonna murder me. Okay. Okay, we're definitely in rFactor, that's how you know. I'm definitely not trying to deceive you. Okay, cool. It's a good brake check, always a really good race strategy. Once again, got to be very, very gentle on that accelerator. Very, very easy to spin these cars out. That's rain. That is rain. So I set it to rain a little bit later on into the race, just to give us a chance to experience those new reflection effects, assuming that the devs have put it in the game. They may not have, but I thought just in case they snuck it in, here we go. So here we are, it's raining and we're on slick, so that's going to be a really interesting time for us. I'm already afraid. I don't think the road surface has changed yet, but I'm already afraid. All it takes is one miss, especially with no traction control. This is going to get very fun very fast. Especially when they give us DRS in a moment. Dive on the inside, not yet. Could use a little more rubber on the road. Tis what oh, everyone's pitting for wets. Okay, this was all part of my secret strategy, you see. As it apparently stops raining while they're pitting for no reason. That is how you gain something like 10 spots. Alright, go strategy. Again, going through all of these wonderful corner complexes that I don't know how to drive whatsoever, especially in the DTM. You know, as usual, I probably should have spun out there, but rFactor pretty kind to recoveries. It does feel like the road surface has changed ever so slightly. I don't know what that's about. It could just be my bad driving, of course, as always. As I hold up the entire field. I think I probably don't need that wiper anymore. Cool. Might need the DRS to win though, dear race director. So AI, I think, has been set to about 103 or 105. So you should be doing a decent run. Okay, everyone's still pitting for some reason. Not really sure what happened there. I may be first. I may well be first. I don't know why, but I appear to be first. Not sure if we're expecting heavier rain than this, but from what I gather, there's only one lap left, so... It's, you know, we're definitely in rFactor, and that's definitely the AI. So it's certainly been a bit of an adventure setting up this race. I may or may not have had to restart several times. That being said, assuming that, you know, it does work in your case and work well, the road mesh, as expected from that track team, is absolutely amazing. I mean, you can see the gradation and detail. Basically, I'm recording this at 4K for those who don't realize. So if you run this up on your massive TV, you can just shove your face right in front of the screen and see the little micro bumps, see the micro detail. I mean, coming from Race Room's version just before, it's obvious how far ahead this version of the track is. It's not even a contest. Apparently that's invalid. Cool. Now I know. But I've got to say, the driving experience may be a little more refined and self-contained. The other sim may or may not have required far less tweaking with the force feedback in order to not jostle the wheel all out of my hands. And apparently I don't get DRS in this race for some reason, so that's the thing. So be it. As I believe that is the checkered flag. That's the end of our little race, and the AI is nowhere to be seen. So what happened there? It's anybody's guess, but let's quickly recap before we call it a day on the video. As one would expect, the laser-scanned recreation of Monza feels amazingly detailed. As someone who hasn't been to nor driven the circuit in real life, I can't attest to how close to reality it is, but one thing that can't be disputed is that there is a ton of detail in there. The DTM car feels fun, though perhaps a little overshadowed by me having driven it in another sim just prior to this video. It would be difficult to cap this off without addressing the 20,000-ton elephant in the room. The race footage you saw was the best take of about a dozen attempts. The failed shots ranged anywhere from the AI taking each other out during the formation lap, to taking each other out during the race, to inexplicably pitting midway through the race, even if rain never fell, to taking me out. It's also worth mentioning that at the time of this video, fast rolling starts don't appear to work on Monza, so I had to sit through a full formation lap with those zany characters every time there was another seemingly inevitable race failure. It's hard to bemoan rFactor 2 for another content release. After all, their tracks often lead the industry in sheer detail, and it's always a joy to experience. That said, it's difficult not to have the excitement overshadowed by the user experience. For example, in the time it took me to simply set the session up and get the race functioning more or less correctly to record a basic practice session and short race, I'd managed to configure another sim from the ground up, learn its new handling model, get to grips with 3 very different types of car, and record 3 whole races. I never quite worked out whether or not DRS was enabled during the race because the button never actually showed up on the dashboard to let me know. This is very much the rFactor 2 experience that you know, but better or worse, just with new content. I initially went into this experience to just focus on the positives, but the reality was that for the 20% of the time I spent racing and feeling out the track, the other 80% was spent cursing the journey needed to get there or trying to rationalize why crazy things were happening. It's doubly frustrating because as an old loyalist, what I want to see more than anything is rFactor succeeding. If you're an rFactor 2 player, the new track rounds out an already very impressive content list that's sure to make you happy and provide for some fun racing. It's also entirely possible that the developers, over time, will patch out the track-specific AI issues and assorted bugs, so what you heard me talk about here could just be a momentary release day hiccup. For me, however, rFactor 2 will be going back into the vault until some more low-level adjustments are made to the sim. Until next time, I'll see you later.